fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey Lab.
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. My name is Adrian Hernandez. I am here today with Evan and Jackie. We are coming live from Pueblo, Colorado, and other places. I can only speak for myself right now. I'm not sure where everybody else is at, but nonetheless, we're here to talk Colorado Avalanche, and we have a few things to cover, as I like to say at the top of every show. If you folks are listening or watching, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share a looped intro. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this. I know, right? This podcast, and just so you know, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that stuff. All of our shows are available the following day after these live broadcasts, which I try so hard not to screw up. But I think the first, minute of this one is a dang it, as they say in the NHL. I'm a goalie who's out of the net right now. But let's talk about what's kind of happened with the Colorado Avalanche. They haven't looked so bad. They looked pretty good against the Calgary Flames, the Markstrom-less Calgary Flames. And we'll talk a little bit about that, a little bit about some of the new guys and how they've looked so far with the Avalanche. And we'll do our breakaway challenge, which will contemplate some potential Avalanche playoff matchups. We will then have our winners segment. And as usual, we will end with our bold predictions. So let's do it. Let's talk about it. I'll send this one to you, Evan. As I mentioned previously, the Avalanche with a quality win, an explosive second period over the Calgary Flames last night. Kind of a surprise with Markstrom not starting. You got Vladar in net, who looked pretty good in the first period and not so good in this. Well, I wouldn't even say that. It just had a lot of goals in the second period. Does this one kind of have an asterisk for you, given the way it worked with the Markstrom and Vladar situation?
I don't know if it's necessarily an asterisk. I think it's more so just the Avalanche taking their chances. I mean, they had three players lost like 6 hours before the game. It was Markstrom, and then there were two others that I am not remembering off the top of my head that were all of a sudden just kind of out. And I was like, oh, that's a little bit surprising. Let me go change my preview real quick that I had already written. But no, regardless of who's in, the Avs did a good job eventually taking their chances. They did not take them in the first period, which I think definitely made some fans a little anxious, I would think, when you put up 20 shots on a goalie who wasn't expecting to play and looking really, really well. I mean, it's a story that we've seen far too many times if you're an Avalanche fan anyway. So they took their chances, which is good. They got a lot of help, not just from the top line, but from pretty much everywhere in the lineup, which is wonderful to see, which I know we'll get it more into later. But overall, just a quality win to keep yourself, in the Central Division race, and more importantly, at least, take advantage, especially because Dallas blew a 3-0 lead last night against Florida at home. So that's 2 more points gained for the Avalanche.
Yeah, and you kind of hint at why I'm asking what I'm asking in the breakaway challenge in terms of where the Avalanche lie inside of their division. But Jackie, let's keep it on last night's game. Do you agree with what Evan had to say in terms of the Vladar not really being a difference? I agree, because I feel like the Avs just shot kind of tremendously well last night, and especially in that second period. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the Avs had Annan in the net, so and he's
point.
played well for us, but I mean,
it's a wash. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. What I kind of want to talk about in regards to Calgary's goaltending is, why didn't they start Dustin Wolf? So allegedly he's I don't think they take him serious. You read everybody, and he's like, the future of Calgary Flames goaltending, and they only put him in the third period when like nothing happened. Like, and the same thing with Nashville and Askarov. Like, there's all the rumors that they're going to trade Saros. They don't want to pay him $8 million. So play Askarov, and he's had 2 starts in his career. They're doing the same thing with Dustin Wolf. I thought that was pretty cheap. I mean, that the Avs are putting Annunen in net. Like, get some guts.
Yeah.
And play this kid. Like, they're pretty much out of it. And I get it. Like, a professional sports team isn't going to really throw in the towel if there's still a chance. But that's kind of my takeaway with that whole situation. So
That's
I mean,
interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. And I don't know, that third period went
well,
by
yeah,
so
I
fast.
mean, I'm just saying as an organization, they're not saying like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't care about winning this game. I get that they're approaching every game is like we still want to win,
For
but
sure.
you got to see what
I hear
Dustin
you.
Wolf
Yeah.
can do. Like,
Exactly.
get
Yeah.
some guts and put him in net, and that should have been the perfect time to do it, especially when you see that the Avs are playing their goaltender who has like 10 career starts.
Yeah.
you know,
I agree with
get
you.
some
Yeah.
guts.
That's a good opportunity to have a kid go against what is essentially a kid. And it's just a wash, like we said. So yeah, that is
Yeah.
interesting. That is interesting because he ended up playing anyway. So he might as
Yep.
well start. But Evan, we finally saw, I guess I say finally, and I did the same in the recap because I was like, we finally saw a goal from the new guy, Middlestat, and it's only been 2 games. So, uh, but it was really nice to see him score. We got 5 goals from 5 different Avalanche in that second period. And there was another goal. Well, actually, on that goal, we saw a nice play from Duhaime and Taves, kind of like a nice chip play that led to Middlestat's break. We've also seen a lot from the defender that we just acquired, Sean Walker. We've seen even Bednar mention things. What do you think of the newbies so far?
Yeah, they've been last night's game was definitely the best ones. I would say for at least all 4 of them.
Mhm.
I saw it on social media a few times that people were confusing Sean Walker for Cale Makar. So that's, I feel like, a good sign for your system. I think he was arguably the best out of the 4 with all of his rushes, and he was pushing the play forward and not letting Calgary go the other way either. So that's a really good 2-way defenseman that you have right there.
Yeah.
I do think that there was a lot of talk around Casey Middlestat just because you look at what Bo Byram's doing right now in Buffalo, and I'm sure that Jackie will have a lot to say about that later. But Byram has done really well to start life in Buffalo, which is awesome to see. I'm really happy for him there. But he's also played more games than Middlestat has played Colorado. So
Yeah.
it's always going to take time for a new player to adjust, especially to Colorado's system that they play and working with Bednar and everybody around them. And frankly, there's a lot of changes that happen with the Avalanche in that middle 6, bottom 6 kind of level. So it's definitely not the only time that we will see Middlestat. He should get better from here, and we'll get a good glimpse of that at least tonight anyway with the game in Vancouver. But I'm happy for him to at least get the ball rolling.
Well, that goal, to me, it felt like you saw why he'll work with the Avalanche once he does kind of get his foothold inside of the system, because he's fast and he can come in with pace and put the puck in the net. And like that chip play is one of the plays that's like a staple of this Avalanche team because of how they use the transition game. And when you can have the new guy come in and basically finish a staple play, I think that bodes well for what's to come with Casey Middlestat. But I'm with you too that like it's such a not hard thing to watch. Like, I want Bo Byram to succeed. It's actually awesome to watch him score goals. He clearly has a more elevated role where he is now in Buffalo. Obviously, when you're behind Makar and Taves, like, it can only go so far. And in Buffalo, he seems to be like their best player in terms of the deeper metrics right now. So it's really been great for him. And then, you look at Sean Walker, who, as you mentioned, was being mistaken for Makar in some instances. I don't know about all that, but I will say even Bednar mentioned that when he cut the tape after last night's game that, Walker was on the starting end of like half a dozen scoring chances, and that he's really good at jumping up in the play. And so, Jackie, I want to send this one your way because after I listened back to our reaction to the trade, something that you said kind of stuck out to me, and it's because I agree with you to a point, which is that you said the Avalanche gave up their competitive advantage when they traded their young defender Bowen Byram because their elite skilled defense and depth within that core has been their competitive advantage. It definitely was when they won the Stanley Cup. I mean, who won the Conn Smythe? So I guess my question is, does Walker is how he's playing, does it kind of put some of those worries at bay? Or are you still just as concerned as you were a couple days ago?
Well, first of all, they haven't even lost a game yet. We haven't seen the downside
Sure.
of this. Like, I wouldn't say that unless they give him an extension. I mean, I really don't care what they do for the next 20 games. It's,
okay.
How do you build a team for the future? I mean, they obviously made the trade. It was a two-part trade. They weren't going to trade Byram until they were getting a decent defenseman back. So right. I get that. And it's nice to see that he's fit in on that end, but he's going to have to, do a lot of heavy lifting as far as it comes defensively. Like I said, I mean, they haven't even lost.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But, I mean, like I said, temporarily, sure. Like he is bringing some of that element. Yeah. But it's just such just scratching the surface to be able to say. I mean, do you want me to answer about all the others or
well, you can absolutely, but I agree with you because and that's kind of why I asked the question, because I figured you would say that. And my I guess backing of that too is where Bowen Byram really came through in his time with the Avalanche was in the Cup run. He was arguably the second or third best defender for the Avalanche the entire way through. And so it'll really prove as to whether or not the Avalanche have that competitive advantage when the playoffs come and go. So that's what's kind of going to be interesting about these acquisitions. And I will let you talk on Duheim, Trennan, and Walker and Mittelstadt as well. But we really won't know until we find out where this Avalanche team finishes, right? And then all that work is left to be done in the offseason in terms of deciding what should stick and what shouldn't.
And yeah, part of it is because even though I just think the perception of what Byram was doing on this team now, like everyone talks about the Cup run and that's great, but it's not like that was just the only time he was good or valuable or important. Like he's been that guy the entire time. He was this team's number 3 defenseman. And I know I say that over and over again and nobody believes me, but if you look at the time on ice, especially at 5-on-5, before that he missed those games in January, he was the highest on the team, the entire team, over everybody, of minutes per game of 5-on-5. And then if you look at it, he had period. It was top 5 on the team. Just time on ice. That includes everybody. That includes the forwards. That includes everybody. Top 5. So that is a huge part of this team. So it's not, people looked that on paper he was with Jack Johnson and he was just on the third pair and he's not good anymore and he wasn't scoring anymore and whatever. No, he was a huge piece, a valuable piece, took up a lot of minutes. Somebody's going to have to take those minutes. Is it going to be Walker? Is it going to be Gerard playing more? Maybe a combination of both. But those are some huge shoes to fill. And I think that aspect is being really underrated. So, yeah, as far as what he's doing in Buffalo is that, it's great to see, difference that he makes. Top pair, playing 25 minutes a night. I mean, that's a franchise-level defenseman. Yep. And was he not going to be that guy here? I mean, there was no reason why he couldn't have been top pair with Makar. You bump Taves down, future. Make it a strong second pair as he gets into his 30s. I mean, were we already writing off that possibility? That's why it upsets me. They had 3 years to get data and make a decision. And
I think they decided when they extended Taves. I think that's really the moment.
And I think that's too hasty. But I get it. What's done is done. Yeah. But what they gave Buffalo as a franchise defenseman at 22 years old.
Yeah. So talk about what the Avs got in return. Then what you thought of Mittelstadt, at least so far.
Well, like I said, it's also easy to say because they won the 2 games.
Mhm.
Yes, on one hand, it was a nice goal he scored. He's not much of a goal scorer. I think his career high is 15 goals.
Yeah, he
So,
just said it last night. Yeah.
so I, so I wouldn't expect too much of that from him. It's nice for him that he did get a goal, to contribute, get on the score sheet. But I think for him, like, the answer isn't going to be known probably for a few years. Like, he needs to grow into a franchise center role. And
Mhm.
he wasn't that guy in Buffalo, and he's not going to be that guy, tonight. If you look at it, he only played 14 minutes, maybe 14 minutes the night before. Is it him just getting his feet wet? I still wonder if Colton's going to be the guy that's leaned on for defensive responsibility. All this.
Mhm.
We'll get. It's just going to evolve, and hopefully he gets there in time. But I just think like he's not there right now, and so they're really kind of banking on that he can get there. So the goal was nice. I will say he was good on draws last night. That was nice to see as well.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll see. Like I said, he's not a set and forget top 6 player. We're
Yeah.
gonna have to get there. So
Well, I stole that phrasing too on X and put that out as a poll because you had me shook. You had me shook after our trade talks because I've always alongside you. We've had different ideas as to kind of what the future should look like and how maybe the Avs should go about the situation. But I think we both identified that they like had some equity in the back end, or at least they perceived it that way, and that it could be used for that 2C. And you were always like, nah, don't do it. And I was always like, well, you kind of have to if you can't, rely on some certain things to happen. Um, I was always on the campaign of trading Taves for a 2C. And as soon as we traded for Middlestat, I was like, yes, it actually only took quote unquote Bowen Byram to get your 2C. But like now I'm sitting here going, well, Middlestat has a lot to prove to really be considered a 2C. And I would go as far as saying that Byram is projected to be and will be probably from now on a top pair defender for the rest of his career. So it's just going to be a lot of proving ground, which I guess starts again tonight against Vancouver in a back-to-back. So
yeah, I mean, there's
yeah.
going to be 2 tough opponents on the road. That would tell us some as well. It just feels like the Avs did it because he was the only not old guy available right
Mm-hmm.
now, and that's why they did it.
He did check some boxes, like you're saying. Yeah,
Yes.
like he just might not have checked all of them. He might not have checked the most important box. We'll see. I hope he does. I think he can. Obviously, everybody else in the franchise does too. But it's just like there's a lot of ifs right now. There's a lot of ifs right now, and it's a pretty crazy chip to have used to bring in somebody that has a lot to prove still. If it works out, they'll look like geniuses, but if it doesn't, it might blow up in their faces.
Like the way I put it is Buffalo's not losing this trade. It
Right.
could still be win-win. I believe it doesn't always have to be a winner and a loser. You can have a win-win trade. It can be win-win. But
Yeah.
Buffalo's not losing. So it's just the jury's out. Are the Avs going to win? And we'll see.
To the credit of the Avs scouts and everybody that does like all the dirty work in terms of like what it takes to go trade somebody, it does feel like everyone that they brought in is very, very much the style and the shape even of like the specific role they were brought in to fill. Middlestat has some proving ground to do, but like he has all the tools. In terms of Walker, same sort of thing. Like he fits the system in terms of that he's a defender who's not afraid to jump up in the play, and he can get kind of going and be that fourth guy in on a play. And that's pretty much what that is the competitive advantage, right? That fourth guy coming in on the play. And then also when it comes time to shutting down, being able to roll your defensive groups in a way that no one gets gassed, but you're not also sacrificing good D. So Evan, I'm going to ask you now with the back-to-back tonight against Vancouver, what specifically like are you looking for and into the future? What are you looking for from Casey Middlestat to kind of start to pave his way towards being that bona fide 2C?
Yeah, tonight's a really good test, not just for him, but for the entire team, quite frankly. We understand the difficulties that they've had on the road. I mean, just look back at their last road trip, right? Which is why it was great to get started on the right foot, last night against Calgary. Now, I do kind of wish it was the other way around, Vancouver first and then Calgary.
Yeah.
But I digress. Vancouver is one of the best teams in the league, as we've already said before. They don't really have a true star outside of Pedersen and Quinn Hughes, I guess. So I guess those are kind of stars. So I've kind of backtracked myself. But anyway, I move on.
What? Lindholm doesn't count?
Yeah.
Oh God, that's right. Lindholm is there now. See,
Elias.
I'm still catching up from everything that happened last week, so pardon me.
Oh, I know. I forget where everyone plays too. I just think it's funny after he was talked about for like 6 months.
That is very true. That's a good point, and that just tells you that the depth that Vancouver has, right? That makes them one of the best teams in the league. So Colorado has their test set up for them, and they are 2-0 against Vancouver this year. So they are going for the season sweep tonight, and you would hope that you get a very similar performance to what you got last night, with everybody chipping in, getting the help that you need, and hopefully that brings another victory. That'd be the 5th in a row for Colorado.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think that the Canucks traded Kuzmenko, thinking that he was like, a problem to trade or whatever, but it looks pretty good right now for Vancouver, who got Lindholm in return for Kuzmenko, who didn't play last night. So I know it's a future thing in terms of Andrei Kuzmenko too, but I think the Vancouver Canucks are pretty deep. I will say, though, it's a convenient that the Avalanche got to roll 4 lines. In fact, kind of not roll 4 lines and keep the top line kind of off the ice in the third period there. I think McKinnon had like 3 minutes and change of ice time in the third period.
He did.
Which is incredible. When you can do that on the first of a back-to-back, that's as good as it gets. And
he had a season low of, I think it was 17 minutes. So
that's awesome.
That's pretty crazy.
So he should still be pretty fresh, and they train at elevation for a reason. So we're good. But I'm excited for tonight's matchup. I think anytime you get the Hughes versus Makar thing going is always fun. You get to see the best defenders, as they say, in the world, depending on who you're a fan of. But the Avs also will be off to Edmonton and St. Louis this week. We get McDavid and McKinnon, and of course, we might get Avs versus Binnington if he's playing. I don't know who will be the starter, but we'll see. But is this, Jackie, if McKinnon, McDavid, is that Cup hopeful versus Cup hopeful? Is it another Western Conference preview potentially?
I don't believe in Edmonton that much. I don't believe in the hype. So no.
No. Oh. Don't
then
believe
again, the Avs
hype.
might not be there either. So.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I'm not a buyer of Edmonton's hype either. It's always the goaltending for me, and it will always be the goaltending for me. I feel like there. But what about the St. Louis game? What are you thinking about that?
St. Louis is always, it's hard to say because they're not having a great year, and I know the Avs beat them once. They might have beat them twice this year already. But that's always a little tough, especially with the Avs road difficulties, and especially at the end of a road trip. I would be curious to see if they come home in between those. I haven't quite pegged if I think they're going to come home or not, and if that might
because they don't
help.
play till Tuesday after.
Right.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
So I could see them maybe come home, and maybe that'll help. Edmonton's going to be a good test. We haven't seen Edmonton this year. I think they're them and Columbus are the 2 teams that I think the Avs haven't played yet. So it's kind of interesting to have a Western Conference team they haven't even played by mid-March. Yeah. So I'll be interested to see how they match up. The Avs usually are pretty good at keeping McDavid off the score sheet. They might have got rid of the guy that keeps McDavid off the score sheet. So I'm interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see where these 2 teams land, because it's kind of a similar story. Like Edmonton has McDavid, who's having an awesome season. McKinnon is obviously, vying for the Hart. But Evan, What are your keys to victory in terms of beating the Edmonton Oilers, a team that's skilled like them?
Yeah, I think those are going to be two very hard-headed competitors going at each other, of course. So you have to break through, but then also hold your own, right? So I think that's what Colorado will be looking for. If you get a similar start to what you had in Calgary, but actually finish your chances, I like Colorado going into that game. But if you don't take your chances and Calgary, or not Calgary, Edmonton gets a couple on the board in the first period, they're going to shut you down, and that's just how it's going to be. So it's really going to be key to get that first goal in the game. We've seen that not just between Edmonton and the Avalanche. We've seen that with the Avalanche all season, that if they get the first goal, they're usually off pretty well. So you just have to hope that they can do that and show up and show out. And yeah, I agree with Jackie. It's definitely going to be a little weird to finally face a Western Conference opponent for the first time in mid-March.
Yeah.
So yeah, they play them 3 times in the span of like 4 weeks. So it'll be interesting to see, and it's obviously important for both teams too, for their own respective playoff races.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about prospective playoff races, and we talked about Edmonton potentially being a playoff matchup. So let's do our breakaway challenge real quick, and we'll talk about possible playoff
The
matchups.
breakaway challenge.
Okay, so the way this thing works is
The
I
breakaway
propose
challenge.
a question. So I propose a question. Man, I'm struggling today, but hey, I'll propose a question to you all. You have a minute to point and give me your valid opinion as to why you think what you think. And as you go about doing that, I will give you points for your opinion if I agree and or think you made your point eloquently. We'll just put it that way. So my question today is, which potential matchup in the playoffs are you most fearful of? And on the other side, which potential matchup are you most keen on? Let's go with you first today, Evan. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to do this on the phone again this week. We're going back to the dark ages. So you have a minute, and your time starts now.
Let's just go through all of the possible opponents the Avs have. The ones I'd be most fearful of is Vegas. If they win the Central Division, the Avs have a good chance of pulling Vegas, and I don't like those odds at all with that good old LTIR, circumvention that Vegas does every year. I would also be a little bit scared, honestly, of Winnipeg. When you look at the season series between the Avs and Jets right now, Winnipeg has got their number. Now, obviously, this is a very different Avalanche team, but Winnipeg looks different this year than they have in years past. As for ones I'd be kind of keen on, surprisingly, I'd go with Dallas. I'd be very opposite otherwise, and that is just because the Avs have had Dallas's number all year, and they have all the tiebreakers. Everything's in their advantage to them there. I would also like LA. LA just has zero depth right now. Goaltending is always a mystery for them, and I think that has good odds too. So definitely lots of positives and negatives for whoever you play.
All right. I gave you 6 there. So we had
that
a little bit
good old average number of 6.
I know. We had a good old rapid fire point for a second.
I know.
There.
That threw me off.
I was like, God dang. You must really like that one, Ado. No. So you got 6. And I like what you had to say there, but I don't want to go too far into it because I want to give Jackie her time and the topics to discuss. So, Jackie, same question to you. Which potential playoff matchup are you most fearful of, and which are you most keen on? And your time starts now.
Well, for sure, the darkest timeline is winning the division only to face Dallas, or not Vegas as a wild card. That would definitely not be great. But I don't feel like the Avs are going to win the division. I feel like Winnipeg is. They're the ones that have games in hand, and I just feel like it's a little bit their year. They have the goaltending. I like their depth. They added defense at the deadline. I think they're a very well-rounded team. I think it's shaping up that the Avs are going to play Dallas in the first round, and we have played them well this year, which is good. But they have a very deep team. They also added to their defense with Chris Tanev. and they also have goaltending. And so I think it could be a rematch of the bubble there. The matchup that was not mentioned is Nashville. That is a possibility if the Avs manage to pull out winning the division. You could always get Nashville. That's probably the easiest of the even remotely realistic first round possibilities. I think they're the weakest team, even though they've played well and we lost there. Otherwise, I don't like LA. I think they are a very deep team. They have good forwards. That is not somebody I want to play. Between Dallas and Winnipeg, I guess Dallas. That's tough though, and that kind of seems like the options at this point. So, just hopefully they get second in the division and they don't have to start on the road against Dallas.
Yeah, isn't that funny how it works that way? Because that's kind of why I brought this to the table. Because after the Avs won, and Jackie, by the way, you won with 7 points there, so congratulations.
Okay. I wasn't looking at the clock. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, you're okay. Well, I let you go because I'm like, she's last and she won. Let her have the floor. But I'm with you there because that's what's so intriguing about the way this is going to shake out. Do I want the Avalanche to win? I think the 3rd consecutive Central Division title. Absolutely. But do I also want the Avalanche to have, I guess, the least stressful route to the playoffs? Absolutely, because it proves vital. I mean, when you can get sweeps, as we know as Avalanche fans, it's really important. So playing in Nashville in the first round again would be nice. Obviously, that might be tinged with a little bit of.
Yeah, it's probably not likely because Vancouver will get that last wild card.
Yeah.
Like I see it's probably not likely, but as far as like all the teams on the table, for me, I don't think getting LA, Edmonton, or Vegas as a division winner is a prize.
No, exactly. But I don't know. We keep talking about Vegas in the Western Conference Final. It's probably going to be Vegas in the flipping wild card because that's going to be how this whole season goes, and it's going to be because they essentially tanked by putting so many dudes on LTIR. They're going to barely squeak in. And so they're going to be on a weird part of the bracket. And so that's kind of their recipe for success, I guess, if you're the Vegas Golden Knights. And funny enough, the Avalanche, in my opinion, should not win the division in order to avoid that matchup. So here we are talking about Avs and Vegas kind of like manipulating sort of how they'll land inside the bracket.
I still think, I don't know. I really don't care about winning the division.
But
I understand as competitors, you want to have the best advantage you can, and you're going to go for it. But let's also be honest. If this is the draft pick they kept, I think it might be kind of better to not win the division.
Right.
Because it makes your draft pick a lot better.
So, yeah, that's a good point.
Like, I'm talking like 22 versus like 27. Like, it matters.
I think,
and like, especially if the middle stat thing doesn't work out and you need to go get that young 2C that's like maybe not now, but 3 or 4 years from now.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah, you might want some assets next year. I don't know.
Exactly.
Just thought.
I think there's one thing that just to kind of touch back on this subject before we can move on to the winner segment is there is no easy path in the playoffs, and I think we already know that and are aware of that.
And it shouldn't. Like, if you're going to win the cup, you're going to have to be good teams.
Exactly.
And that's also it too.
I would like to think anyway that most Avs fans would agree that you'd rather have at least one series, the first round, to have home ice advantage because the Avs are simply just not the same team that they are away from Ball Arena.
Great point.
So if you win the division, great, because then you get it for at least the first 2 rounds, which is wonderful. But if you get it for at least the first round and you get second place in the Central, you get at least 1 round of it. If they finish third, that's it. I'll admit that's going to be a little bit tough to go into Dallas or Winnipeg, for the first 2 games and for 4 of the 7 games, frankly. So that would force you to have to win a road game. And the Avs, like I said, they're just not the same team away from Ball Arena.
It's an interesting point.
And usually I'd say that, like when they were good on the road, I'd say I kind of like that because you steal one on the road and you come home and it sets up as like, I almost kind of like that setup better. But with them struggling on the road this year, then you can't have them start 0-2. So
yeah, I was gonna say I'm shaking in my space boots if we lose those first 2. And yeah, like we've talked about how in years past the road success has been a staple of the Avalanche in the regular season and in the playoffs. They won every series when they won the cup on the road in a road game, including the Stanley Cup final. So, I mean, it's nice to be at home, but it also comes with a different tinge of an added pressure in certain instances, like an elimination game. And I hate to be that guy, but maybe what McKinnon needs to really do to win the heart is win a game 7. And it'd be nice if that's at home, but also I'm scared if it's at home because we see how the Avs have performed in the past when like the expectations are at their highest. I think they were at their highest as they've been at home in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final. And it's not like the Avs, threw a dud, but there was definitely some nervous energy. Even the players and coaches have admitted since that happening that there was a nervous energy to that atmosphere. So, oh man, so many questions. It's going to be so fun to see how this all shakes out for the Avalanche. But Jackie, as we mentioned, you won the Breakaway Challenge, which means you get to introduce our next segment with your own topic. What do you got for us today?
Okay. Just before we get there, at least the Hearts voted on before the playoffs start.
True.
So,
yeah,
I think he's got it if he gets that Gretzky record, and if he has the
it's
points
voted
lead.
on before. It's just revealed
right,
like
exactly.
right before the. Okay, that's correct. Okay,
but I guess I want my topic to be Kovalenko.
yeah, love it.
It's such a mystery. Like nobody knows. Like, is he? Can he function? Is he in the U.S. already? Where is he? What is he doing? Like, is he just going to show up one day? I don't know if we've ever had like this gigantic mystery that's, I don't know, going to happen maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question is, just what are your expectations? What are your hopes? What are you kind of like anticipating as this Kovalenko thing finally comes to fruition 6 years later? We might be on the cusp of it. Maybe by the time we talk next, he will have existed. I don't know, or not.
Evan, you go.
Yeah, I think it's a fair and honest question, and the other Evan Rowell with Colorado Hockey Now has been very much on top of it, but has just not gotten answers because there haven't been any answers recently about his status and where he is and all that whole jazz. So Bednar already confirmed last night that Kovalenko would not be joining the team on this road trip anyway. So the earliest we would see him is, I believe, next Friday at home against Columbus. Or no, that's too far ahead. Sometime next week, late next week would be the earliest.
I think.
Do
they have a home game before that? But who knows? Like, he might have to practice as well.
That too, yeah. And so, that's where the biggest question mark comes in, right? Is like, we have no idea where he is. The team is not sharing where he is, and I think more importantly, we don't know the status of his injury either, right? I think Torpedo's head coach said after they were eliminated that he didn't give off too much worry. At least that's the last thing that I heard. And so what that means, who knows? He's learning from Jared Bednar and his sick comments, but we're just gonna kind of have to wait and see. I'd have to pull up the schedule here on my phone, but I would think that Kovalenko would probably be making a return if he's healthy. If he would be making, I guess, an Avalanche debut probably towards the end of the month or early April. So who knows? You are muted, by the way, Adrian.
Yeah, I guess I'll just jump in real quick. There is another KHL source, and yes, the other Evan has done a great job of really finding a niche on this Russian stuff, because it is great information to have if you're willing and able to find it. There is another KHL tweeter that did say that Kovalenko, they had like their locker clean out on Monday, the breakup day. They actually do that in Russia. And it seemed like the sense from that was he's fine. So, good. And the fact that now we're getting back into the Avs cloak of silence means maybe he's been handed off to the organization that gives no information. So I think he'll be fine, but yeah, it's a matter of, can he like play instantly? If he needs to nurse it a little bit, could that be a week or two? But I think they want to get him practicing and acclimated to start, so that's okay. Like if he doesn't play for a week or two, and have all of April, that'd be awesome. So
That's a
where I'm
great
at.
point about practice and stuff. So the schedule, I'm looking at it here. So that the like Bednar said, he's not joining the road trip. So the earliest he could play is March 22nd against Columbus at home. That is next Friday night. That is the start of a 5-game homestand for the Avalanche. So I think that's a good time. Yeah, I think that's a good time for him to at least join the team for practice, for morning skates. At least get used to the system at least, and just get himself settled in, adapted, all that. So I think there would be a good chance of him, if he is okay, of joining sometime in the stretch of that 5-game homestand. I just looking at it here, that makes sense in my mind anyway.
Yeah, so I was watching that game live in the morning here in the States, and my stupid butt, I put my foot in my mouth so hard because I was like, dang it. It's like I literally said there's 2 minutes left in this game, or 3 minutes left in this game, and Kovalenko's in the box for 2 of them. He's coming to Denver. I forgot about that 1 minute, I guess, where things could go terribly wrong. And that's kind of the optics of it are what scared everybody. And because he went down, he stayed down, he had to be assisted up and off the ice and then again into the locker room by multiple individuals. So it was like, it just didn't look good. But now when I watch it back, I kind of wonder if he was just more scared than he was hurting. Because I would have been too. Just the way he got clipped, where he got hit, not to mention like inside of the scope of that game, it was an elimination game. His team was down 2 goals. And I don't know how the rules work, but if that somehow turns into a major penalty in some way, shape, or form, I don't know if that's even a thing. But that could have spurred on, a rejuvenation for his team. They could have gone. So not necessarily accusing him, but it could have been some gamesmanship going on there as well, in terms of like maybe trying to draw a further punishment from what just had happened away from the play. But I love how you put it, Jackie. Like he's now under the shroud that is the non-disclosure franchise. So it might just
That's
be
a good way to put it, the non-disclosure. Yeah. I feel like it could have been more of like a stinger or a bruise. Like usually if a guy blows out a knee, surprisingly it's not as violent, I guess I should say. Like unless you just like the guys fall into the boards or something, but usually like knee injuries don't look as bad. And I think we've avoided like the big one, like broken leg, blown out knee. So if it's a minor injury, he'll recover.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. He'll fit in nice in that bottom 6 this season and going into the playoffs, especially
it would
with
be
Cogs going down for the season, which is a total bummer. I don't even know did we talk about Cogs going down for the season?
I think you mean O'Connor.
LOC, not Cogliano. Let's not scare the people here. But no, we have not talked about that though, and I actually do. I do want to touch on that because I went to practice on last Thursday, right after the Madness Day, and then more madness came up while I was there, and I actually spoke with Megan Angley of DNVR, and we were both kind of just confused of like what are the moves that the Avs are making right now with Trennan and Duhaime coming in. I didn't really understand the Duhaime move at all, but now it makes a lot more sense with LOC being out. So that is obviously really, really killer, not just for him because he's a wonderful person, but he is a workhorse for this team and really binds a lot together in that bottom 6. So his absence will be greatly missed, and hopefully and there are even questions about him in his return for the start of next season. Miles Wood had the same hip surgery that LOC is having, and that takes about 6 to 7 months to recover. So that puts right around September, October when LOC would be healthy, which is obviously training camp and then the start of the season. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he does. It's obviously really unfortunate to have that happen to a great guy, a great character in the locker room. So you're just going to have to hope that the new guys fill in and do well in his place.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
sorry for my misspeaking of him saying it was Cogs, but I'm so sad because the Roaring 20s line was going to be so fun in the playoffs, and I was really looking forward to that. Just Cogliano is like, I feel like he's Bednar's poster child for like that bottom six. Like he does all the things that the Avs ask of someone in that role. Jackie, what are your thoughts to LOC going down for the year?
Just the same thing. It is unfortunate. He's a big part of the team, especially on the penalty kill. I feel like they wanted to add as many people as they could have, regardless. In a way, Duhaime has given me the best impression of the new guys. It could also just be because he's wearing 12, and I have like the PTSD double take. You're just kind of like, wow,
that looks so much faster.
Yeah, you just notice it more because you're like, wow, 12 is skating now. This is something. But I wasn't quite sure what to expect with him just because he was just a low scoring agitator. I think he's more like it kind of reminds me of Obey Kubel. He'd be similar to probably Obey Kubel could score better, but maybe provide that type of energy and forechecking and things like that. It still irritates me because you have to pay a 3rd round pick for a guy that you should be able to get out of your own system, but
yeah,
that's
that's a whole nother
that's a long-term problem. But for him specifically, like I said, he reminds me of Obey Kubel. And I liked him, so I think that's positive. I have not noticed much of Trennan. I don't think he's meshing with Colton. They might need to rethink that line.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he can hold on to the cup a little better than Abe Kubel.
I was waiting for you to make that joke. I was waiting for it.
I think got all the dad jokes.
That's a good comparison, though, to compare Duhaime with Nicolas Aube-Kubel. I mean, that was one of the targets I thought the Avs might go for at the trade deadline, but they went down a similar-ish route. And yeah, I would agree. I think he's probably number 2 out of the 4 new guys so far. I do agree, though, that Trennan has not been great yet. And hopefully, like I said, we're only 2 games in, so no need to fret. And hopefully we'll see a lot of guys step up in his absence. And one of the big things that I don't remember who it was now at the top of my head, but whoever it was pointed out that a lot of the Avs moves made were penalty killers. They wanted penalty killers on and come in there. So Brandon Duhaime, that's a penalty killer. Trennan, a penalty killer. All makes sense, right? Sean Walker can be put there as well. So we're just gonna have to see how they all do in LOC's absence, and hopefully LOC is okay, recovers well, and we'll be back in time for the start of next season.
Yeah, shout out to Logan, who had played 57 games and was just 1 point shy of his career best of 26 points in 82 games. So he was about to shatter his career best season if all kind of went as it was going before he left. So hopefully his recovery is expeditious, and we do see him back in time for the beginning of next season, so that he can kind of prove it to himself yet again that he was about to set himself up and have a career year. But let's get to our final segment. And folks, thank you so much for tuning in today to the Mile High Hockey Lab. We currently have like 270 live viewers, so that's pretty cool. That number just keeps getting bigger and bigger every single time we do this. So thank you folks very much. Please head on over to milehighhockey.com. We have a lot of Avalanche content there to include previews, recaps, and some opinion pieces by these 2 contributors, and a few more. So with that being said, our last segment is called Bold Predictions. It is when we put our foot in our mouth or we look like geniuses, because Jackie is the bold prediction sharpshooter, and I think Evan got himself a ding this week. So let's just run that tune.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I call that bold talk.
All right. Well, Evan, let's just get it out of the way then, baby. Tell us, what did you predict?
I predicted that Sean Walker would get a point in one of his first games, and you can just go ahead and do the boom.
Bang. Give it to him, baby. Jackie, you said Nuke would have a goal, right? Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I wrong?
In his first, yep. And didn't he?
Oh,
Yep.
what do you
And
know?
the game winner note that we didn't even really touch on that. Welcome
No.
back, Valeri Natrushkin. He's had such a big impact in just the first 2 games back. Not just with the game winning goal, but also his presence on the power play last night in Calgary, and just driving the play forward. And that is wonderful to see. Looks like a new human pretty much, but still doing exactly the same things that he did on the ice before.
He's the X factor. He's the Avalanche X factor. I think they've got a chance in the playoffs as long as that top line can exist with potentially without him, but sometimes with him, and that he stays healthy. Because man, just something about the Avalanche. They're a different team when they have a guy like him, that net front presence, especially that top group, and especially the power play. It seems like that seems to be the crux of what the Avalanche do on the power play because it's so successful. He was leading, and I think he's still top 5 in the league in power play goals, despite missing time. So great ding there, Jackie. Like you're just stacking them up. Your trophy case is just.
I do have to ask, did I
brim.
get the ding for the shutout? I think that was the show I missed.
Yeah, you did, but we'll give you one right
Okay.
now because.
All right.
But yeah, you were right, and you were right twice. In fact,
That's right. I forgot about
as
that
it
one.
Turned out, and then I said that Miko would get a hat trick. We were close.
He was
We were
close.
close.
He
We
was
were
close last
If
night.
the Avs didn't end up being up 4 goals in the second, he might have got an empty netter. I was like, oh, this is working out. Could have a 3 for 3. I mean, Casey Middlestat, that was Ezra's. His was that he would score in his first game back. That was wrong. But I wish I could give you kind of like a half ding because he scored in his second game. So that's pretty good. I mean, we almost had a 4 for 4 week, y'all. Would have
Wow.
been crazy.
That would have been impressive.
Crazy. Oh, look, Ezra did say that he thought the Avs would trade for a 4C before we left, and they did that, right? They had to have. There's like
You could argue that Trenton could be
3
that.
or 4 of them. Yeah, I was gonna say yeah. So
you could argue that. We'll give it to him.
We'll give you a ding there. Why not? All right. So that was last week's bold predictions, and folks, if you enjoyed that, we do that every single week. And also, if you put on X and you write out your own bold prediction and do hashtag bold predictions and tag us in it, we'll probably share it on our program because that's kind of what we do. We love to interact with everybody. So let's get into your bold predictions this week, your bold hopes this week. Jackie, we'll start with you.
Okay, I think I did this when we played Tampa, but I'm gonna say McKinnon will not only outscore McDavid, he will double what McDavid scores in that game.
That would be big in Edmonton too. Wow.
Yeah.
McKinnon will double McDavid scoring in the head-to-head matchup.
Yep.
I love it. Love it. That would be great. Great for the campaign of Hart. That's for sure. Evan, what do you think? What's your bold prediction this week?
I'm gonna keep riding the hot streak that I have here with my one ding in a row, and keep going with Sean Walker because I think he's only gonna keep getting better and better. I'm gonna say he has a 3-point week.
I like
between 3 points between this show and our next show.
Next one
instead.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I think there'll probably be like 3 or 4 games in there. So that's about a point a game. If he can do that, that would be very nice. We'd be feeling very good about Sean Walker's contribution and potential with this team. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I really like the prospect of him doing well in St. Louis. I feel like St. Louis in particular. I think that could be at least a 2-point night. I won't. No, don't put that one on the record. But I'm just.
It's too late. We're live.
I'm
just thinking it out. Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's the word, enhancer.
Yeah. There you go. I like it. Cherry on top. I love it. I love it. So, well, since we're staying on theme, I've been calling for a Mikko Rantanen hat trick for like 4 months. So I'm just gonna switch my person, and I'm gonna say Nate Dogg, but I'm gonna take it further. I'm gonna say we're gonna see one more installment of the Mac trick before the end of the week, which is
So
4
does that mean it
goals.
has to be a 4?
4 goals.
Is the Mac trick now a 4 goal?
The
4
Mac trick
goals.
is now 4.
Yes.
That would
Which
really
makes-
help. That would really help Jackie's pick if it happens in
Exactly.
Edmonton.
I see it happening in Edmonton. Count it. Dang it. He's going to get 4 goals and he's going to have an assist. He's going to have another 5.9. That's how it's going to go. That's how I'm calling it. Calling my shot like Babe Ruth. I might just totally swing and miss though, unlike Babe Ruth. Well, I guess what? He was best in home runs and best in striking out. So who knows? What is the great line? Wayne Gretzky said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Right? Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. So, yeah.
Bingo.
So those are our bold predictions this week. Hopefully, we get them all right. If we've never ever had a full panel ding, and I don't even think I have the necessary celebration music to do that. And so I need to get that queued up so that if it ever does happen, we're flipping ready for it. But is there anything else around the league? Let's talk. Actually, I have something around the league that I want to talk about. I said this on X. Is the Kempe McDermott episode finally the proof we need to show that having a guy like McDermott doesn't stop anybody from taking cheap shots? Who wants it?
Ooh.
Sure.
Go ahead, Jackie. So that's a loaded topic.
Yeah,
it is. It is funny. One of the arguments I saw is, how do you know? Maybe there'd be more cheap shots.
yeah.
Which I don't quite buy that one. It's like, oh, just enforce so you only just have to deal with one cheap shot.
Yeah.
The Rempe thing, it's tough for me because you got a kid. He was a 6th round pick, been in the AHL for 2 years, and now he gets his chance finally. And now he has this fanfare because he's this goon. Like, I was surprised he even made it after the deadline. I guess New York didn't add that much to bump him out. But I don't have a problem with the physicality in the game. But I just think this whole situation kind of is what's wrong with this. It's just all about narrative. It's not about reality. It's about the stage and the show. And we know McDermott doesn't really cause trouble. He doesn't start trouble. So even that feels inauthentic. That was part of it. That McDermott was asking him to go at the beginning of the game because everyone was expecting it because of this. It's just like, I don't know. To me, like, that's my thought on it. It just feels so inauthentic. It's just about the storyline, the narratives, the headlines. It's not even about anything real. And so I just can't really say any more about that. Like, I guess it's too, like, I hope Rempe has a legitimate career in general, but I don't know that he is, because once all this flames out, he's just going to be back in the AHL.
Yeah, and my thing is, it's like all the old heads, they love this stuff, and I like it too. Like, I used to be a part of a site on Facebook called Gloves Off Hockey. Like, I love fights in hockey, but I like them.
But does it have to mean something? Like, doesn't it have to be passion? Doesn't it have to be spontaneous? Doesn't it?
Yes, and that's where I was headed. Like, the old heads say, like, oh, well, and they all say this. They all say, well, we don't like the staged fights. These are all staged fights.
Yeah, they basically are.
When it's a goon. It's like, why else is McDermott chasing him around? Well, there was a hit in the game before. Well, if there was a hit in the game before and McDermott wasn't on the ice, does that just mean you wouldn't care anymore? No, you'd still send somebody there. It's about this, the code again, but the code is so not black and white, and people pick and choose which side of the code they're going to stand on when it suits them. And I feel like the Ranger fans in particular, they were so up in arms about Tom Wilson for the last half decade and the things that he does. And then Kempe comes along and they're like, oh, it's just hockey and leave it up, leave the kid alone and yada, yada. It's like, he's injured 3 people in like 6 games. Is that really the future of the NHL for a guy to be chicken winging dudes, get a 5-game sussy and then come back and keep doing what he's doing? I don't think so. What are your thoughts, Evan?
And that does that mean you have a career? Like, what is going to happen with him?
Good point. Yeah.
It is, it's one thing if it's somebody established. Like, I have a problem with what Trouba does. I think he gets away with way too much. I think he's perfected the make it look legal, but it's not hits. Like, I think though he's super dirty, but
Yeah, they always do like, oh, he's just big.
yeah,
He also
and
knows where the other guy's head is.
yeah, exactly. He knows exactly where to put that shoulder. But I mean, I think it's fine that he's gonna have to answer for this hit. I get it. That's the code. He's gonna probably when they play again. But I mean, what does that really change? It doesn't change anything. I just wish the fanfare of it. Like, what does that tell everybody else in the AHL? Like, if you
Come
ever
on
get
up
a
and
chance,
yeah.
if you ever get
Yeah.
called up, the miracle one time you get a chance, well, you better run somebody over. Like, that's just so just caveman thinking. Like,
Archaic. Yeah.
and if it works, I mean, these guys are trying to make a career.
Can't
And
really
you
blame
can't
him.
blame him. You
Yeah.
can't blame him. This kid wants to stay in the NHL. Like, he's
And
going to keep doing it.
Yep.
We love hockey culture, man. We love it.
We do it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You make a great point though, Adrian, about the Tom Wilson stuff in particular, with Rangers fans being all over him. And yeah, you can't have what's the saying? You can't have your cake, but you can't
You
have your
can't,
cake.
and he did too.
Yeah,
Can't have
there
it
it
both
is. Yep.
ways.
Can't have it both ways. So, I also this is I'm going to sound such like a zoomer here, but I do also really hope that he does take care of himself, because those 2 black eyes that he has and the multiple fights that he's had, that could be serious, like concussion, CTE stuff down the line, and you obviously don't want that for any guy at all. So while it's cool and neat maybe to some people, I do really hope that he does take care of himself and has a happy, healthy life outside of hockey and fighting every night. So,
Yeah.
He's probably in danger in the AHL. Like, I'd have to look up his real fight card, but yeah, he probably goes down there and does the same
Throws him
thing.
even more. Yeah. Well, and that's Evan, you say you sound like a zoomer, but it's like, no, dude, like you sound like an adult. That's what you sound like. You sound like somebody who's thinking about the repercussions and decisions and the long-term repercussions of the decisions. And Jackie, you put it great when you say, like, you can't really blame him because it's keeping him around. He's getting to play in the NHL, and that's what he's doing. So it's like,
Yeah.
the game is still rewarding that, and it's still setting guys up for the long-term ramifications of that style. So it's kind of like, you can tell us that you're about player safety and that you're about moving this game away from what used to be kind of the headhunting stuff that we saw. And, I'll be the first to say I loved that when it was normal. But once I kind of had a deeper understanding of the depth of the situation, like I don't love it as much as what could happen in the worst case scenario for some of these guys. So I'm willing to sacrifice the open ice hits and some of the stuff that is borderline in order for this game to maintain its players for a longer period of time, because that's really the end goal, is like having people see long careers, because that's what builds fans, not one night there was a giant hit. And I know a lot of people say, well, this Avs franchise is built heavily on the Detroit Red Wings brawl. I would rebuttal that with, it's actually built on the great hockey that was played between those two teams. And there just happened to be some emotional episodes, but that's because they were both very, very good teams and they both played with a lot of pride. None of that was staged outside of, I'm so pissed that you're beating me, let's do this. You know what I mean? Nowadays, it's like, Jackie, you already know what the next fight is going to be with Rempe when he comes back to play the Devils again. We all know that's going to happen that night, probably, right? And that's as staged as it gets. So I don't want to go too crazy because I could go on for days about this, but that's just my opinion. Do you guys have any last thoughts on the subject?
Emotional episodes is a good way to put the Avs and Red Wings drama that there was that got in between the good play between those two teams, even though that was before my time. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. It's
and I like physicality. Can we not hit people in the head?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a distinction. I think there can be more of a distinction made. But I think the fans get more angry about it than the players and the teams
Probably,
do.
yeah, probably.
So until they really want to make tighter rules in that regard, this is just kind of the line that they've drawn with
It's a good
this.
point.
But I do think it's good that the NHL said, enough is enough here. Maybe that kind of boils it down. He's gonna have his fight with McDermott. I think he's got to do it for hockey code. Like you said, everybody's expecting it. And then hopefully, we can kind of simmer it down.
Yeah. Well, Evan's cat just crossed the screen, so that means it's time to wrap.
She says, get off of this thing.
Yeah.
My turn to sit on the lap.
Yeah. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We have about 320 live listeners and viewers.
Oh, thank you very much.
Pretty awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. It's always nice to have folks tuning into our program because we do this kind of just out of the love of the game, so to speak. Here's to the Avalanche playing the Vancouver Canucks tonight. It was kind of nice. We had a game last night to talk about, and we got to preview tonight's game. So I'm going to try and get this episode out as fast as humanly possible. Then they're available typically the following day on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, among other streaming platforms. And last thing, head on over to Puck Yeti as well. We contribute there, write some more articles about the Avalanche. And what about you two? You guys got anything else you want to spit out at me before we go?
I don't think so, no.
No? Okay. How's Downforce going over there for you, Evan?
Good as always.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, signing off from the Mile High Hockey Lab, here's to the Avalanche beating the Vancouver Canucks tonight in the second of a back-to-back. Adios, go Avs.
Thank you for tuning into the Mile High Hockey Lab.